From flames that burned on water to light that fell from the heavens, ancient fire was more than heat. It was weapon, miracle, and omen. But the real mystery, how its secrets burned for millennia, then vanished without a trace. They called it liquid fire, a weapon so terrifying it could burn on water. In the 7th century, as the Byzantine Empire faced waves of Arab naval invasions, a secret weapon emerged from the docks of Constantinople: Greek fire, a combustible liquid projected through siphon-like tubes mounted on warships. It ignited enemy fleets with devastating precision. Eyewitnesses described it as a fire that clung to flesh, soaked ships, and could not be extinguished by water. It was not merely flame. It was a force of panic, capable of turning entire battles. But what made Greek fire truly extraordinary was its formula. A formula lost to history. Some believe it was a blend of naphtha, sulfur, quicklime, and other volatile substances, engineered by a Syrian Christian named Callinicus. Others suggest it was a state-held military secret, known only to a handful of imperial chemists and extinguished with the fall of Byzantium. Its use was recorded across centuries, at sea, in siege defense, even handheld flamethrowers. And yet, no archaeological remains, no written formula, no physical residue has ever been conclusively identified. Historians and chemists continue to theorize. Was it chemically ahead of its time? Or was there something more? Because even now, over 1,000 years later, the fire that defied water still refuses to give up its truth. In the harbor of ancient Syracuse, legend tells of a weapon born not from metal or fire, but from sunlight. Archimedes, the famed Greek mathematician and inventor, is said to have designed a device during the Roman siege of 214 BCE, a weapon that focused the sun's rays to set enemy ships ablaze. Using polished bronze mirrors arranged in precise formation, the heat ray was meant to concentrate solar energy onto wooden hulls, igniting them from a distance. For centuries, this account straddled the line between myth and possibility. Renaissance thinkers revived the tale, intrigued by its blend of science and warfare. In modern times, the myth was tested again. Engineers, physicists, even television programs like Mythbusters recreated versions of the setup. Some achieved momentary ignition under perfect conditions. Others dismissed it as impractical in real battle scenarios. Yet the deeper mystery remains. If not the literal destruction of ships, could Archimedes have instead used this concept to dazzle, blind, or disorient? A psychological weapon cloaked in sunlight? No original diagrams survive. No definitive texts describe the method. And still, the image endures. Sunlight bouncing off bronze, converging like a silent flame from the heavens. Was it science, legend, or both? Some truths, it seems, remain hidden, not in shadow, but in the light. In the heart of ancient Rome, a flame once burned without end, guarded day and night, not for light, but for fate. The sacred fire of Vesta, kept alive by the Vestal virgins, was more than ritual. It was a symbol of Rome's endurance, purity, and divine protection. Lit in the circular temple of Vesta within the Roman Forum, the flame was said to represent the eternal life of the empire itself. If it ever went out, the Romans believed disaster would follow. 6 priestesses, chosen as children and sworn to 30 years of service, were tasked with keeping the fire alive. To fail was not only shameful, it was punishable by death. But what kind of fire could burn so continuously? Was it mere wood and ember, or was there a hidden technology at play? Some scholars speculate that oil, bitumen, or other slow-burning fuels might have been involved. Others suggest ancient methods of fire preservation, perhaps involving insulated hearths or controlled airflow, lost to time. The exact technique used to maintain such constancy remains unknown, especially given Rome's volatile climate and the lack of modern containment tools. And when Rome fell, so too did the flame. Extinguished by decree in 394 CE by Emperor Theodosius I, the sacred fire was never relit. But in every flicker of ceremonial flame today, we're left wondering, what knowledge was lost when the last Vestal turned away? Every year, on the day before Orthodox Easter, a flame appears where no flame should be. In Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believed by many to be the site of Christ's burial, thousands gather for a ritual known as the miracle of the Holy Fire. Inside the darkened tomb, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch enters alone. Moments later, from within the sealed chamber, he emerges holding fire, a flame that, according to the faithful, descends from heaven itself. The holy fire is said to ignite spontaneously, without any earthly source. Witnesses claim it doesn't burn, at least not at first, and can be passed across bare skin without harm. For believers, it is divine affirmation. For skeptics, it is one of history's most enduring enigmas. Modern attempts to explain the phenomenon suggest concealed matches, hidden wicks, or chemical trickery. Yet the event is tightly controlled, observed by multiple church denominations and even civil authorities. No clear evidence of deception has ever been presented. And despite centuries of investigation, no one has definitively proven how or if the fire is kindled by human hands. It is part ritual, part spectacle, and part mystery. Because whether miracle or illusion, one truth endures. The flame returns every year, always unannounced, always unexplained. They appear just above the ground, faint, flickering lights that dance over marshes, bogs, and graves. Known across cultures as will-o'-the-wisps or ignis fatuus, foolish fire in Latin. These spectral lights have lured travelers off their paths for centuries. In folklore, they are tricksters, spirits or fairies that lead the unwary into darkness. But behind the legends lies a natural mystery still not fully understood. Scientists have long proposed that these lights are caused by gases, such as methane and phosphine, released by decaying organic matter in swamps. When these gases oxidize in contact with air, they may spontaneously ignite, producing small, dim flames that hover briefly before vanishing. But eyewitness accounts defy easy explanation. The lights move, they seem to react. Some describe them rising from the ground, darting away when approached. Not flickers, but sentient sparks. They've been spotted on moors in England, in the Louisiana bayous, and across the rice fields of Asia under different names, but always with the same eerie behavior. Attempts to recreate the phenomenon in controlled environments have yielded inconsistent results. Some flames appear, but none replicate the full spectral dance described in centuries of sightings. Is it just gas, optical illusion, or something stranger? Because even in the age of science, the lights still appear and still disappear, leaving only questions in the dark. At sea, when storms rage and lightning cracks the sky, a strange blue flame sometimes appears, clinging to the tips of masts, sails, or even swords. Known as St. Elmo's fire, this luminous glow has been both omen and comfort to sailors for over 1,000 years. Named after St. Erasmus of Formia, the patron saint of sailors, it was seen as a divine sign, a warning or protection during the fiercest tempests. But this ethereal fire is not flame at all. Modern science explains St. Elmo's fire as a plasma phenomenon, caused by a strong electric field in the atmosphere. When the voltage between the stormy sky and a pointed object becomes high enough, ionization occurs, exciting air molecules and releasing a soft, bluish glow. Unlike lightning, it's not destructive, but it is otherworldly. Yet for all we know, mysteries remain. Why does it occur only under specific and rare conditions? Why does it sometimes last for minutes, clinging to objects as if alive, and vanish without a trace? And why do some reports describe it making hissing or whispering sounds? It's been seen on ship masts, church spires, and airplane wings, always during intense storms, always uninvited. Even now, pilots and sailors still speak of it with quiet awe. Because St. Elmo's fire doesn't burn, it haunts. A ghostly flame, drawn not by fuel, but by the invisible tension between earth and sky. Long before cannons roared and muskets cracked, a different kind of fire took flight. In ancient China, as early as the 9th century, military engineers harnessed a new and volatile force, gunpowder. Among its earliest battlefield applications was the fire arrow, a simple wooden shaft, tipped with flame, and powered by explosive chemistry. These were no ordinary arrows. Initially, fire arrows were conventional projectiles tipped with burning cloth or resin. But by the 10th century, Chinese texts began describing a revolutionary design. Arrows equipped with hollow bamboo tubes filled with black powder. When ignited, these rockets would launch themselves, whistling through the air with fire trailing behind, striking enemy lines in a blaze. Some versions were shot from bows, others from early rocket launchers made of wood and iron, primitive yet effective barrages of controlled chaos. But what remains mysterious is how advanced this technology truly was. Some accounts describe multiple stages of propulsion. Others hint at fire arrows that exploded on impact or dispersed additional incendiary agents. Yet much of the original knowledge was guarded, lost, or deliberately obscured during times of political upheaval. Today, fragments of launch tubes and scorched arrowheads have been recovered, silent artifacts of an age when science, warfare, and alchemy were indistinguishable. And in every spark of their flight, one question remains: just how far did ancient China's firepower really go before the world was ready to understand it? On the decks of Byzantine warships, terror came not in volleys, but in flame. The Byzantine flamethrower was the delivery system behind one of history's most feared weapons, Greek fire. Mounted on the prows of ships, these siphon-based devices unleashed a liquid flame so potent it could ignite on water, clinging to sails, hulls, and flesh alike. To enemy fleets, it seemed less like a weapon, and more like an act of the gods. But the weapon's power lay not only in the fire itself, but in the mysterious machine that controlled it. Historical sources describe brass or bronze tubes, sometimes shaped like the head of a lion or dragon, through which the incendiary substance was projected. Pressure was likely generated by hand-operated pumps or bellows, forcing the flammable liquid out in a fiery stream. The mechanism was often hidden behind armored shielding, and manned by trained specialists known only to the imperial military elite. No full device has survived. No schematic has ever been found. Even its exact construction remains speculation. Was it pressurized through heat, or a chemical reaction? Could it shoot flame over short distances, or much farther than we imagine? What we do know is this: it was devastating. Accounts from Arab and Western sources describe ships engulfed in fire, their crews leaping into the sea as the ocean itself burned. And then, like the secret of Greek fire itself, the flamethrower vanished from history, a machine built to dominate that now exists only in fragments and fear. When Rome's sacred flame went out, it was not struck by flint or sparked by wood. It was reborn by sunlight, focused through mirrors. In the Temple of Vesta, the eternal flame symbolized the endurance of the Roman Empire. Tended by the Vestal Virgins, this sacred fire was never meant to die. But if extinguished, whether by accident or omen, it had to be relit in a way deemed pure, untouched by mortal contamination. Ancient sources describe a remarkable method: a concave mirror, made of polished metal, used to concentrate sunlight onto a bundle of dry material until it ignited. The flame that emerged was then transferred with solemn care into the inner sanctum, restoring the fire without the defilement of human-made spark. It was not just ritual. It was optics and mystery. How advanced were these mirrors? Were they shaped from bronze, silver, or some lost alloy? Could they focus sunlight with enough intensity to create flame even on overcast days? And how did the Vestals, trained in religion, come to wield such precise knowledge of reflective geometry? No known mirror from this rite has survived. No exact dimensions recorded. Yet the ritual continued for centuries. Precise, sacred, and silent. In the fusion of science and faith, the Romans may have captured something timeless. A fire born from the heavens, kindled only when the sun chose to return. In the earliest echoes of myth, fire was not discovered, it was stolen. The legend of Prometheus, the titan who defied the gods, tells of a single act that changed the fate of humankind. In the time before time, Zeus withheld fire from mortals, fearing what they might become. But Prometheus, moved by compassion or rebellion, ascended Mount Olympus, took flame from the divine hearth, and delivered it to earth. Wrapped in a hollow fennel stalk, the fire was passed to humans, a symbol of light, knowledge, and power. What followed was both progress and punishment. Prometheus was chained to a rock, doomed to suffer eternally for his theft. Yet the fire remained, a divine spark that ignited the birth of civilization. With it came metalwork, cooking, language, and war. The myth, preserved in Greek poetry and drama, has endured as one of the oldest allegories for forbidden knowledge and the cost of enlightenment. But is there more to the story? Some scholars see it as a memory of a forgotten age, a coded tale of early technological awakening. Others view Prometheus as a metaphor for those who challenge divine or political order in the name of progress. Still others wonder, was this tale built on even older traditions, long lost to oral history? Because whether gift or theft, myth or memory, the Promethean fire still burns, not in hearths, but in every spark of human ambition. In the ancient temples of Babylonia, fire did more than illuminate, it spoke. Among the Chaldeans, the priest astronomers of southern Mesopotamia, flame held divine significance. Rituals often involved a mysterious substance known as naphtha, a natural petroleum seep drawn from the earth, volatile, dark, and alive with potential. When ignited, it burned with an intensity unlike wood or oil, unpredictable, flickering in colors, whispering through smoke. This was no ordinary fire. It was the holy fire, used in sacrifices, purification rites, and oracles. Chaldean priests believed the movement and shape of the flames revealed messages from the gods. Naphtha fires burned hotter, danced longer, and sometimes appeared to reignite spontaneously, leading many to regard them as signs of divine presence. Some texts suggest that these fires were kept burning in temple altars for extended periods, possibly using engineered stone basins designed to retain heat and oil. But how much did the Chaldeans truly understand? Was this early chemistry mistaken for magic, or was it something more? Their temples, aligned with stars and seasons, suggest deep empirical knowledge. Could their manipulation of naphtha represent an ancient, now-lost mastery of flammable materials? No complete ritual texts survive. Only fragments remain, cuneiform tablets half buried in time. Yet from those broken lines, one image endures. Priests gathered around a flame that did not belong to this world, but to something watching through it. And long after the fire has died, the mystery still smolders. Before the cannon, before the musket, there was the fire lance. In the 10th century, deep within the battlefields of Song Dynasty China, a new weapon emerged. A bamboo or metal tube strapped to a spear, filled with a primitive blend of saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur. When ignited, it unleashed a blast of flame and smoke, short, chaotic, and devastating at close range. These were the world's first gunpowder incendiaries. Not quite firearms, but no longer mere spears. Initially, fire lances projected nothing more than a searing flame, used to blind, burn, or shock enemy troops. But by the 12th century, they evolved. Metal shards, ceramic pellets, or even poison dust were added to the charge, turning the flame into a deadly burst of shrapnel. With each generation, the fire lance moved closer to becoming the first true gun. Yet many questions remain. How effective were they in real combat? What materials did early Chinese engineers experiment with? And how far did these early prototypes influence the global development of gunpowder weaponry? Few original fire lances survive. Most were lost to decay or erased in centuries of war and upheaval. What remains are hand-scroll illustrations, fragments of tubes, and scattered references in military treatises. But in that fleeting burst of flame, part spear, part dragon, was the birth of something the world had never seen. Fire made into a weapon, and the age of smoke had begun. Long before matches, lighters, or steel. Fire was born from friction. Across the ancient world, from Africa to Asia, the Arctic to the Amazon, early humans mastered a deceptively simple yet deeply symbolic tool, the fire drill. A stick, a groove, and the rhythm of motion. With patience and precision, they transformed wood into flame. The fire drill came in many forms. The hand drill spun between the palms. The bow drill, powered by a taut string and a bent branch. The pump drill, with its spinning disc and vertical thrust. Each was a quiet triumph of observation, technique, and muscle memory, designed not to spark, but to smolder. At its core was the same principle: convert motion into heat. Press a spindle of dry wood into a softer base. Rotate it quickly. Add the right pressure, the right material, and wait for the curl of smoke, the glow of ember, the fragile promise of fire. But behind the simplicity lies mystery. How did such knowledge travel across continents, across millennia, often without written record? Why do cultures separated by oceans develop nearly identical tools? And what subtle variations in wood type, humidity, and tool design remain unknown to modern science? Today, we recreate these methods in survival courses and experiments. Yet few can match the quiet mastery of those who once carried fire across forests, deserts, and mountains, armed with nothing more than wood, breath, and belief. In the spinning of that ancient drill, the human story ignited, and we've been chasing the flame ever since. In the age before electricity and matches, fire did not come easily. It had to be struck from stone. Across centuries and civilizations, the flint and steel method stood as a cornerstone of survival. A shard of hard, fine-grained flint, a piece of high-carbon steel, and in between, the tiniest spark, enough to awaken a flame from cold metal. The technique was elegant in its simplicity. Strike the steel against the edge of the flint. Tiny fragments of metal shear off, heated by friction to a glowing state. If caught by char cloth or tinder fungus, the ember spreads, slow, deliberate, and ready to be nursed into life. By the Iron Age, this method had spread across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Viking graves contained fire kits. Roman texts described the process. Samurai warriors carried flint and steel alongside blades. Even in medieval monasteries, monks kept it close, for fire was not just warmth, but sacred continuity. But questions remain. When and where did this technique first emerge? How did ancient metallurgists discover the precise type of steel that produced reliable sparks? Why did similar fire-starting methods appear in cultures that had no known contact? And what did fire mean when it came only from effort, ritual, and patience? In that sharp click of flint and steel, there is more than ignition. There is knowledge passed from hand to hand, and the quiet reminder that every flame once began with a single, deliberate strike. In cities built of stone and timber, fire was a constant threat. Yet some ancient civilizations didn't just fear it, they planned for it. Among the marvels of antiquity, the aqueduct is often praised for its role in supplying fresh water. But in places like ancient Rome and Carthage, these engineered waterways served another, lesser-known purpose: fire suppression. Designed with precision gradients and gravity-fed flow, aqueducts moved water across vast distances, sometimes over mountains, valleys, and bridges. But beneath the grand arches and open channels, secondary branches and hidden cisterns were embedded into city grids. Archaeological findings suggest that some of these were positioned near marketplaces, forums, and dense residential blocks, not for drinking or bathing, but for emergency fire control. Roman author Vitruvius writes of reservoirs held in readiness and systems for quenching fire with speed. Firefighting crews, known as vigiles, were stationed throughout the city, drawing water directly from these auxiliary lines. In some areas, public fountains and underground basins acted as pressure release systems, creating localized access to stored water. But how advanced were these designs? Could ancient engineers have created a coordinated, citywide fire response network? How were these systems maintained? And how much of that knowledge disappeared with the fall of empire? Today, only fragments remain, broken conduits, scorched stone, and the writings of ancient architects. Yet within those ruins lies evidence of a profound truth, that even in a world lit by open flame, there were those who engineered for its worst and tried to tame the very element that made civilization burn. When cities burned in the ancient world, help didn't come from buckets alone. It came from pressure, piston, and bronze. Long before modern firefighting engines, the Greeks and Romans engineered a device both simple and revolutionary: the siphona, an early form of the fire pump, mentioned in texts by Heron of Alexandria and Vitruvius, and hinted at in battlefield reports. This two-cylinder pump was capable of delivering pressurized streams of water to extinguish flames, or, in some cases, to launch Greek fire in naval combat. At its core, the siphona worked by alternately drawing water in and forcing it out through a nozzle using manual levers and piston action. Made of bronze or wood and sealed with leather, it could be carried by hand or mounted on carts, delivering water with surprising force and range. But how widespread were these devices, and how effective? Archaeological reconstructions have shown that such pumps could shoot water up to 30 feet, enough to reach rooftops or smother flames in crowded city blocks. Records suggest Roman firefighting brigades, the vigiles, used them as early as the 1st century CE. On warships, modified versions projected incendiaries, controlled streams of flame that terrorized enemy fleets. Yet no complete siphona has survived. Only partial remains, scattered components, and textual descriptions offer glimpses into their function. Were these truly ancient firefighting machines or prototypes of a deeper, forgotten technology? What's clear is this: in the ancient world, fire was both a tool and a threat, and someone long ago built machines to fight it one piston at a time. Not all fire was sprayed. Some was thrown and shattered on impact. Among the many terrifying forms of Greek fire, one of the most enigmatic was the clay pot bomb, a compact, handheld vessel filled with a volatile incendiary mixture, hurled during siege battles and naval assaults. Small enough to be carried by a soldier, but devastating enough to spread fire across decks, walls, or crowded ranks, these bombs turned ancient warfare into chaos. Historical sources, including Byzantine military manuals like the Tactica and De Ceremoniis, describe ceramic jars sealed with wax or pitch, filled with Greek fire's unrecorded formula. Some were thrown by hand, others launched by catapults or handheld slings. Upon impact, they shattered, spreading their contents and igniting in a violent burst of flame that reportedly burned on water. The exact contents remain unknown. The recipe for Greek fire was a closely guarded state secret, likely involving combinations of naphtha, sulfur, quicklime, or resin, but the delivery system via breakable pots was ingenious. Contained combustion, controlled spread, shock, and psychological terror. And yet, no intact clay bomb has ever been found. Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of scorched ceramic near ancient battlegrounds, but none that can definitively be labeled as Greek fire bombs. The line between fuel container and weapon blurs in the historical record. So the mystery burns on. How were they sealed? How did they ignite on impact? And just how many secrets did the Byzantines bury in a pot before the flames consumed the evidence? One thing is certain: these were not just vessels. They were fire waiting to be released. In the ancient world, there were places where the earth itself seemed to breathe fire. From the hills of modern-day Iraq to the shores of the Caspian Sea, naphtha springs, natural seeps of flammable petroleum, oozed from the ground. But in certain locations, they did more than seep. They ignited. Without spark, without flame, fire born directly from the soil. Ancient texts from Babylonia, Persia, and later Greek and Roman authors speak of these mysterious sites. Flames that flickered perpetually, especially near naphtha pools and tar pits, were seen as sacred or ominous. Temples were built near them, rituals were held by their light, and travelers reported glowing hillsides long before modern geologists understood hydrocarbons. But what caused the fire? Scientists today suggest that spontaneous ignition occurred when gases like methane or ethane mixed with naphtha vapors, triggered by extreme heat, static discharge, or even chemical reactions involving minerals in the soil. In rare cases, lightning or friction from rock movement could have provided the initial spark, allowing the flame to sustain itself through a constant natural fuel supply. And yet, the mechanism remains elusive. Why did some springs burn for centuries, while others never ignited at all? How did ancient engineers and priests interpret, or perhaps harness, these natural blazes? Even now, places like Yanar Dag in Azerbaijan continue to burn, the earth exhaling fire as it has for millennia. And in every flicker, there's a question. Did ancient people stumble upon a geological anomaly, or did they unlock something we no longer understand? Long before the matchstick, there were tales of fire that lit itself. In the writings of the ancient geographer Strabo, a curious account appears of stones that, when scraped or exposed to air, would ignite spontaneously. These early references, found in regions of Asia Minor and Syria, hint at a lost understanding of phosphorus-based ignition, centuries before modern chemistry gave the element a name. Phosphorus, isolated formally only in the 17th century, is a substance that burns when exposed to oxygen. But Strabo's account, along with other Greco-Roman observations, suggests the ancients may have encountered natural forms, such as white phosphorus-bearing minerals or decaying organic compounds, that ignited under the right conditions. Could they have harnessed it? Some scholars believe early alchemists and temple priests, through trial and error, discovered materials that reacted with friction, heat, or air, creating what seemed to be miracle flames. They may not have known the term phosphorus, but they knew the fire. Used in rituals, traps, or sealed vessels, these substances likely formed the basis of arcane ignition rites now lost to time. But no formula survives. No definitive sample has been recovered. We are left with scattered clues, second-hand writings, burnt altars, and mysterious scorched relics. Yet the question lingers in every ancient flame that seemed to light itself. Did the ancients stumble upon one of chemistry's most dangerous elements? And if so, what else did they burn into history that we have yet to rediscover? In cities shaped by fire and built of wood, some structures endured when others turned to ash. Across ancient civilizations, from Rome to Mohenjo-Daro, there is evidence of fire-resistant construction materials far ahead of their time. These weren't just stones stacked against the elements. They were engineered to withstand heat, flame, and even chemical assault. Roman texts describe structures lined with a volcanic ash-lime mixture, the precursor to modern fire-resistant cement. In Hellenistic cities, certain bathhouses and storage vaults used stone cladding and plasters that charred but did not crumble. Archaeological layers from ancient Mesopotamia reveal mud brick walls coated with a silicate glaze, likely created through intense firing, a natural barrier against flame. In Egypt, fire-retardant gypsum was applied to tomb interiors. In the Indus Valley, baked bricks and sealed drainage systems point to an understanding of thermal shock resistance. Some ruins in Anatolia even contain composite clay and crushed ceramic infill, materials that show minimal heat deformation, even when exposed to ancient fires. But here's the mystery. How intentional were these designs? Were these materials chosen for durability alone? Or did ancient builders understand their thermal resistance? Could they have developed primitive fire codes, unwritten yet woven into their architecture? Few written records explain these choices, yet the material evidence remains. Walls that didn't burn, ceilings that held, chambers that outlasted the flames. Some say ancient fireproofing was accidental. Others believe it was knowledge lost, brick by brick, burned and buried. Either way, their silence speaks through the stone.